What a joy that you have found us for this podcast. How exciting it is to think that this spiritual message is going out to people around this planet. Whether your life is working at a peak level or whether it can use some enhancement, have I got the message for you today. So get a piece of paper, get ready to take notes, call a friend, have them watch this podcast also. Then you too can have something to talk about and take it to a deeper level. So enjoy. Here we go. Hey, it feels so wonderful in here. It is I don't know if it's a na-na-na-na song. Paint could have something to do with it. You know, the design team who wants to stay anonymous, they got rid of the edge of the yellow and came up with this soothing champagne color. And when I think of champagne, I think of bubbles, I think of celebrations, I think of New Year's Eve. And to top it off, we got barrier reef in the background. If this is not Seaside colors, I don't know what is. It feels really good. It feels very honoring that we're taking care of our home. We're being good stewards. You know, our intention was to beautify, was to take care of what God gave us to work with, and to think after being here 6 years that we have freshened it up and really took it to a whole new level. The bookstore is all redone. Stop in there and take a look. It's exciting. You know, we're focused. You know, we've been given a vision. You know, we've tuned into that frequency, and you know, color has a frequency. It has a vibration. You know, you're on the lower end of the red spectrum, and the waves are slower. The higher end, the violet, the faster. But there's a vibration. And this morning is about shifting frequencies. Radios. I mean, my goodness, they've got a lot of different stations, and you've got them playing, and you can tune into one, and you can shift the frequency and tune into another one. You can shift that quickly. I mean, you can on the radio, but you can as human beings also. I was at the beach yesterday with Trevor, and I think the rest of San Diego. And there's a little kid playing on the beach in the sand, having a great time. And Dad thought it would be good for him to go in the water, which is not what he was thinking. But Dad picked him up, and he took him into the water, and he started screaming and yelling, and he shifted his frequency just like that very quickly. And so what I want us to get is that we can shift what it is we're focused in. We can shift it just like that. And so this morning is about being able to shift the frequency, moving to a new level of love, moving to a higher level of joy in our life. But what I've noticed in the world in which we live is it's not like people are tuning into one frequency. It's like they got the radio going on one station, and then they got a radio going on another station, then they got the radio going on the other station, and they got 3 or 4 stations going. Have you ever listened to 3 or 4 radio stations at the same time? No. Okay, well... Let me tell you, if you're aware of that cacophony of sounds would drive you crazy. And then your cell phone's going off. And so what I've noticed is in our world of the celestial speed up, where things are moving so quickly, everybody is multitasking. And unless you can do 5 things at once, you're not enough. At least that's what society wants us to feel. So I watch people driving down the road. You know, they're driving. They're talking on their phone that's attached to their ear while they're text messaging on their BlackBerry and listening to the stock report on the radio while reading the newspaper all at one time. It's a dangerous thing out there to think that you have got to be multitasking like that. You know, I would used to watch the news sometimes. I turn on CNN, right? Very simple. You turn on CNN, you watch the news. Well, last time I turned on CNN, you didn't only have the news coming out, but you had this little ticker tape at the bottom of the stock reports. And on the left-hand side, you had all the headlines coming out, and then across the top was something else. And in this little boxes of news, there were 4 things. I was so confused, I stopped watching the news. I think what we want to do is be able to shift the frequency and tune in to one thing, to commune, to connect. See, the beauty of relationship is that we have the opportunity to communicate and to connect with somebody. When you're in conversation, when you're talking with somebody, you share, and then you wait, you listen, you feel, you sense, you share, and then you listen, and you interpret. I think the exchange between 2 people next to sex, talking and communicating has got to be one of the most intimate things that 2 individuals can do, is to be able to share there and to be able to connect at that soul level. But what happens too often in conversations is when somebody is talking, the other person's spacing out. They're thinking about what they're going to say next, or did it get interpreted right, or what is it I want them to get? And all of a sudden, this narcissistic expression of self is just being interrupted by the other people's words. What I wanted us to do is to be able to shift the frequency so we are in the moment. So we are absolutely present, not being bombarded by 3 different stations and 10 different thoughts and 5 other projects that we've got to be doing. I want us to be able to absolutely connect and commune and to feel and to sense the moment. The moment is where it's going on. And the person you're with, that is your soul's laboratory. You got that? That is your soul curriculum to work with the one that you're with. Work with that one. That is before you. You know, dial in that frequency. Dial it in. Say, okay, I'm not going to be wishing this, wanting that. I'm going to work with who's in my life here in front of me now. Wherever it may be. I was in the men's restroom. And And I don't know, there's this little guy, he's 5 years old or something. He couldn't reach the faucet to wash his hands. So, you know, being a good Samaritan, you know, I kind of reached over, turned on the faucet, and I was going to lift him up. And his dad came at me like a linebacker for the Chargers, about knocked me through the wall to get to his son, and gave me a look like I was going to kidnap his little kid. And that vibe could have brought down that building. I was like, wow, what a shock. I mean, if you're just present, you don't misinterpret. And I mean, I have a young guy, you know, you don't go somewhere with strangers, but to think that this guy is teaching his son not to communicate with other people, that to live in fear, and that this is what is getting passed on to the future generations. That's not what I want to be dialing in to this world. You know? But if I want to be dialed into expressing love, then how do I respond to something like that? You know, it's one thing, oh, how could he? But how do I respond? And what I've got to recognize is whoever is in my house or whoever is in my space, how irritating they may be, that is who I get to work with. That is a blessing from God. That is my divine assignment for the day. So whether they're at work, whether they're in your house, whether they're in your face, that is your assignment for the day. And you get to tune in to attack or love. Granted, it's easier to love when people are being kind to you. That's for sure. It is a lot easier to love when people are being kind to you. But it's not the only time. Kate Webb, you may have known her, a phenomenal journalist for the last 40 years. She was known as one of the war journalists on the front lines from Vietnam to Afghanistan. She was taken prisoner by the North Vietnamese, held in prison, who thought she had died. She had once contacted malaria and almost died from such a severe case of that. She was brutally beaten and attacked by rebel soldiers. I mean, she was there on the front lines. And people said to her, "You must be tough. You have got to be so hard." And she said, "No, actually, I'm very soft. I'm a softie." And I think that is why I've been able to survive, by being soft, because those that are hard, they shatter. See? They shatter. Because this is it. This is the way it is. I am just fixed. And as you get fixed, you get bombarded by all these other stations, all this other input, all these other things that are coming at you. It's up to you to begin to be kind to yourself. And not beat yourself up because you blew it. Not beat yourself up because there was something. But to be kind enough to yourself to realize that you're still growing too. I mean, it's easy to take a look at the 10-year-old and forgive them for their blunders. You realize they don't have the maturity of a 20-year-old. But just because you're 20 doesn't mean you're done. Just because you're 50 doesn't mean you're done. As long as you're still here in this world, you're still growing. And to be able to be kind to yourself, to be able to be understanding to yourself is so important. That's the frequency dial of love, to tune in to that connectedness with Source, toward yourself. But yet we beat ourselves up to get ourselves to be motivated. You know, the frequency of fear, the frequency of what they're going to think. We're going to get bombarded. And so all of a sudden we've got these ideas and beating ourselves up to work more, when all of a sudden the guilt is having us put in more time and overtime than we do for our paid time. People use guilt like a diet. That's a good one. I watch people with the self-flagellation start months out before they ever start with their diet. Start beating themselves up so they're motivated to diet. It's like, how could this ever have happened to me? It's pretty obvious, don't you think? You ate too much, you know? I'm just getting older. You know, my 24-inch waistline is now my thigh measurement, you know? And People will talk and guilt and, like I said, the cacophony of sounds in the head just keep going and going. It drives them, just get on with your diet. Start exercising. If they would walk as much as they would talk to themselves, they would be in recovery for being an anorexic. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind to yourself. I want to assist you to break free of your self-imposed, limiting humanhood. Your limiting humanhood that believes that the challenges that you perceive in this three-dimensional world are the truth. This three-dimensional world is what we were born into, with its fear, with its concern, with its lack, with its limitation, with its false appetites. And we begin to think this is the truth. That is not the truth. That is the stuff that is going on in this world. But you can move to a higher frequency. You can move beyond that ultraviolet level, which you can no longer see. But it is a God vibration. It is a God frequency that is looking for someone to tune itself in and become that transparency, to become that receiver, to become that place where that presence of God moves and will move you to take action. And sometimes that action you take isn't easy. If you're going to start that diet, you may have to stop some of that. You might have to exercise more. Taking that action is not always the easiest thing when you are tuning into new frequencies, when you're motivated to do something. But I will tell you, I have met most people who like the idea of change. They want to help change the world. First, to sign up to help change the world, just so it doesn't interrupt their favorite TV show, Or whether they could do it between 3 and 5 on Saturday when their kids are at sports practice. Yeah, they're willing to do it just as long as the place looks nice. It's got to be a beautiful environment for our committee to get together, and we can discuss it over Chardonnay and some cheese on how to change the world. America is about the only place that wants the change to be convenient and not to impact them. Did you imagine the revolutionary guys? They didn't even have cell phones to communicate. 2 by land, 1, they figured out this kind of change is not convenient. Sometimes to move to a new frequency, to shift your frequency, you've got to do something. You've got to begin to do something different to catch the vision that has been trusted to you. I got to tell you, this vision to beautify and unify Seaside, which has become known as our Dream, Be, Create stewardship campaign. We saw that vision as like, that's big. All of a sudden, it's become our duty to do it. I don't have a clue how we're going to do it, but what I must do is become available to that vision. I must become available to that frequency. I must become available to receive what Spirit has in store. And I'd like to be able to tell you, I know how it's all going to turn out. It would have been a lot easier to be given $1 million up on the front end of it. Would have made it simple. We still got to deal with the city. We are at the next leg. But I've got to tell you, the vision becomes our duty to unify these two properties so we can be permitted to be up there on the hill. So our children have a place to go to school during the week and on weekends. So we have the adult education classes that are legal for us to be in. So we can have surplus parking. So we can have more bathrooms. So we can have a family room where we can celebrate. And we've grown into the family room. We're sitting back there. I see 3 or 4 extra rows of people sitting at coffee tables listening to this morning. There's something going on. We have been given a vision in advance, and it is our duty to become available to it and not allow my mind to say, boy, that just doesn't square up with my human belief. How are we going to make this happen? That's what the three-dimensional old frequencies on the lower level of the tuning say. And too many people just want to stay there. They just want to stay there. But what you have to do is your work. What you have got to do is commune and communicate, not with a chattering mind, but commune and communicate with God, with that Spirit, to do your prayer work. To do your prayer work. And don't you remember teaching your kids when they went to bed at night to do their prayers before they went? Didn't you teach your young children to do their prayers every night before they went to sleep? You probably sat in there and did, I lay me down to sleep, or whatever the prayer was. What in the world makes us think once we became adults, we don't have to do nighttime prayers anymore? Well, I'm just too tired. Oh, it was a tough day. I'll get to it tomorrow. Right, you're supposed to get to it tomorrow, but what about now? Now is the appointed time. Let us do our nighttime prayers before we drift off every night. It's not just for little children going to sleep. It is for adults now in their life to do nighttime prayers, to step into that place of gratitude, to step into that place of receptivity, to step into that place where there is no otherness than the consciousness of God that permeates my field of understanding. If I want to tune into that God place, I have got to take time at the night, in the morning, in the middle of the day to remember to shift the frequency, whether people are nasty or whether they're kind. That's the station I'm going to listen to in the face of all situations. You know what Jesus said when he was getting ready to leave his buddies? And when he was ready to depart, he said, "Stay in the city until the Spirit lifts you." Stay in the city until the Spirit lifts you. Stay there until the Spirit of the God is upon you. Stay there until the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. He said, stay in the city until the Spirit lifts you. Stay there until the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. Stay there in your prayer. Stay there in your meditation. Stay there in your contemplation. Stay there in that place where you are in your life or in your relationship. Stay there until the presence of God is upon you, so that you are such a clear expression, a clear frequency, a clear vibration from a new level that is not heard in this world, that people will know that you have been with the presence of God. When Moses came down out of the mountain, they knew he had been with God. It says his face shone with the presence of God. It was ablaze. It was on fire. Now here's a guy, he was a shepherd. He was hanging out, tending his sheep, when he came across this bush, this burning bush, and he was with the presence of God, and all of a sudden something changed. So you stay there until something inside of you changes. He came down, this guy stuttered, and all of a sudden he was speaking as God speaks. He freed the Hebrew nation without arms, without armies, from the biggest, gnarliest pharaohs of the day. And he took them to the very threshold of the promised land, to the very doorway of the promised land. But he didn't take them in. Very important. Good teachers can't take you across that threshold. They can take you to the doorway of the promised land, of the new teachings, of the new insights. But you are the one who has to step across. We've got our classes here starting at Seaside. I encourage you to sign up in the back of the family room today. I want everybody at Seaside to be involved in the class. And the good teachers will take you to the very edge, but you are the one who must step across that. You're the one who must step into that place. Because we need you to do that work. This world in which we live needs all of us to tune into that new frequency. Because in the days of old, when Jesus showed up, they talked about the first coming of the Christ. And what it was an individual who exemplified a state of awareness that we call the Christ awareness, the Christ consciousness. This man, Jesus, was the first coming, the individual who was able to share that light when people were putting him on a cross. He said, forgive them. That's a lot tougher than being in a bathroom, I assure you. He was living that. He was tuned in. The first coming was an individual who exemplified that level. Now they're talking about a second coming, but the second coming is not going to be an individual. The second coming is not going to be a person. The second coming, I believe, is going to be the collective consciousness of humanity. The second coming is going to be moving through all of us. The second coming is going to be humanity lifting to a whole new level, because when we were kids and prior to us, churches would take us, they would teach us our spiritual stuff. As we grew and we got old and we finally began to get it in our later life, we would die. And then they'd have to start all over with the next generation, with the kid, and they would teach them, and just as they would get it, boom, it would be time to move off this planet. But what's happening is there is a new consciousness that is prevailing, and our children and our grandchildren that are being born today are not going to have to go through that, because they're being born into a spiritual consciousness, a second coming, a divine awareness, a spiritual dominance upon this planet where there is no otherness. And our children are coming into this world. They are different, they are clearer, they are brighter, they're more intuitive, and they are more honest, because they are stepping into a consciousness that all of us have been working on for this generation and previous generations. They are coming into a world where all of a sudden what is out there is the presence of God. And my goal is not that there is going to be a world where loveless acts are outlawed, but rather that they're unthinkable. And it comes because you are willing to shift the frequency, tune into a higher place, a God place, and turn off the cacophony of all the other stations bombarding you, and absolutely commune with the presence of God in the relationships you're with, the business you're doing, and the people in your world. God bless us as we shift the frequency together. So I'd like to invite the ushers to come forward as we do take our gift from our heart. Again, with a lot of heart and soul and passion. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now. Hey, I trust you enjoyed that podcast. It was very exciting to be able to create that and to know that there are people like you all around the world that are observing and integrating these spiritual principles into their life. And so if you enjoyed it, what I'd like to do is encourage you to tell a friend or bring several friends together and watch another one of these podcasts. And then afterwards, take some time to talk about the spiritual principles, to talk about the stories and what significance they have and relevance they have in your life. What then happens is it moves to a deeper and deeper level in your world. It becomes real and assists you to create the freedom in your life that your heart and soul so desire. So if you like this, I encourage you to watch it again, but also tune into our website here at seasidecenter.org. There, you can get some of my written material and take a look at it. You can read some of my spiritual prayers. You can even go to our online bookstore and order some of the books. And if you're so moved, what I greatly would appreciate is your financial support, which you could do online at seasidecenter.org. It is support like yours that assists us to be able to continue to do these kinds of gifts for humanity and send it out to the world. Because you know what? We are making a difference with this spiritual message. And because of support like yours, people are being touched in the farthest reaches of this planet, as well as our backyard, more than we could ever begin to realize. So I thank you from the fullness of my heart for making a difference.